Hi, Amy. Thanks so much for joining us on the channel tonight. It's great to have you here. And you are the second person I'm speaking to in the long COVID Diaries series. Yeah, so feel free to introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about yourself, what work you were doing or are doing currently, and just a bit about your life before the pandemic. Yeah.
So I'm Amy. I live in London. I'm 40. And before the pandemic, I was working at the Scouts, and being the program design manager. So was leading the design on the activities that Scouts were doing on their camps. And it was an amazing job. It was such a privilege to work there. It was really creative. It was very forward thinking. It was really collaborative. And in lockdown, we did our best to keep people scouting in lockdown online and in their homes. And it was extremely intense, but it was incredibly proud-making work. I had the honor to design a whole badge with the team, which was the Money Skills badge, which we launched in June 2021, the height of my career. And then in July 2021, I got COVID, and I've been in bed since, pretty much. I had one jab in June, and then 6 weeks later, I got sick. And then 6 weeks after that, I got the second jab. And to display the change in bodily ability, the year before I had trained to do a boxing match, a charity boxing match. So it was like 5 times a week, 10-week training thing. I lost spectacularly, but it was something where I would do a physical challenge every year because I couldn't quite embed going to the gym every other day. So I would have a challenge that I'd never done before that I could create a routine for and a timetable and raise money for a charity and wear a Wonder Woman outfit and everyone cheers my name, and then I never have to do it again. And it was really great. And I did like a triathlon and a half marathon and this boxing match thing. And then, 6 weeks after I got COVID, I couldn't stand up in the queue to get the second jab. So it was a massive shift in terms of what I was physically able to do, and the mental adjustment to that has been profound and is a daily practice to accept the new limits, even nearly 3 years on.
I think I'd say you're one of the longest long haulers I think I've met so far, if I can say. And I wanted to ask, so after your first jab, did you have any symptoms, or was it only 6 weeks after that point when you got the acute infection?
Good question. I didn't have any symptoms. I've never had a health condition. Didn't have asthma. I didn't have like diabetes or arthritis. I'm hypermobile, and there is a theory that that is some kind of autoimmune backdoor that maybe the virus could get into. And it does seem to be a correlation of people with hypermobility and chronic conditions and long COVID. So there could be a connection, but I didn't get any symptoms. When I got COVID, when I tested positive, I had a really bad cough. It felt like a really bad flu, but like couldn't get out of bed. I lost my sense of taste. The sense of smell loss is the weirdest thing. And like I always have essential oils that I put on my pillow, and I couldn't smell the lavender, and I started like scrabbling around my room just like trying to sniff things and just going, oh my god, this is so weird. A friend of mine still hasn't got her sense of smell back, and it has changed everything in her life. Like it's really tough. It's really challenging having your senses be compromised like that. But then after about 3 weeks, I still wasn't going back to work, and I kept saying I'll try again on Monday, and I was like, I'm just not up to it. And I was working really intensely, like 8 hours a day. I was managing a team. I was a leader in my organization. I worked really hard to try and keep good work going, and I was very concerned about rejoining work as an unreliable colleague. And my team and my boss were amazing. They were really kind, they were really patient, they were understanding, and they're like, we've got it, you get better, do what it is that you need to do, we need you back better. um
Mm.
I was very lucky that I got seen by a long COVID clinic about 3 months in, which is unusual. And being in London, you have access to things quicker and closer. And I did a standing test for POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And my, blood pressure wasn't right and my pulse wasn't right. And I hadn't walked that far down corridors. Hospitals are really big. I don't know if I'd never noticed before like how much walking is involved going to these places. And the consultant there said, you're probably looking at about 6 to 9 months recovery, which was a massive blow. And that was 2.5 years ago. So I was lucky enough to be assigned to the rehab team, who were giving me exercises and were sort of testing my heart rate and my blood pressure and that kind of thing. And everything kept coming back fine. My lung capacity was fine. My hearts were fine. My bloods were fine, but I wasn't fine. I couldn't breathe. You can hear that I keep kind of gasping for breath and stuff because I can't, and I'm lying down talking to you because I can't sit up and keep talking. So the tests that they do aren't right, and because they don't know what they're looking for, because it's all new and it's very difficult. So after about a year of I'd say every 2 or 3 months meetings with the respiratory physio and with the rehab team, I was discharged because they were like, don't know, we've given you some tools to manage your symptoms, but you're a complex case and we don't know what else to do with you. I was
on that point, sorry, what are your symptoms, if you don't mind sharing?
So it's based, from what I can understand, it's chronic fatigue. So fatigue is the biggest one. I'm doing this, I'm lying on a pillow often. I'm not usually holding my head up with my hand, but it's better for the microphone if I'm not on a pillow.
I appreciate it.
No problem. Some breathlessness, some brain fog. I can't concentrate on thinking and creating for more than an hour a day, usually. So I'm trying to do some consultancy work with diversity, equity, and inclusion to improve access in organizations. I've always been an inclusive designer, and all of my work in the past has been to increase access for young people from marginalized backgrounds and underserved areas to get better opportunities in their education, society, and in their work. And that work continues in the disability employment space, as well as all of the protected characteristics, of which there are 9 in the UK. So it's things like age, ethnicity, sexuality, religion, that sort of thing. So I try to consult to organizations about that, but I'm too tired to do a full-time job. So it's about sharing my limits and how I can work within my limits without pushing myself, because the best advice I got when I first got sick was from a doctor who said, you're not Wonder Woman. Do not push yourself. If you do, you will reduce your chances of recovery. And it was the best advice I'd ever got. Considering I used to do nothing but push my limits, I've had to totally reverse my approach to them. And now I'm able to kind of forecast. If I'm out, for example, I can say, I've got about 15 minutes in me before I have to go, or an hour, and then I start planning my route back. And then there are some times when it just hits me and I have to communicate to people to make a electrolyte drink for me and give me a straw because I can't lift my arms, and stay very calm while that happens. Lots of meditation.
Did the doctors prescribe anything medicinal or like prescription drug wise to look at, or supplements or anything like that?
I was put on a trial of antihistamines and a low histamine diet for a bit, which is
Yes.
really boring. I don't know if you've tried it. And
Shame.
we have to get rid of all of our vices, and it's like, really, you're taking sushi away from me? This is just so. And I tried supplements as well, and it's everybody's different, right? And I didn't get I didn't get enough of a physical effect difference. The thing that has been the most beneficial, which I've been able to maintain every day, is a meditation routine and the gratitude journal, because that helps to keep your perspective in a way, in a place that feels like you can operate in it. You can keep going.
Well, I'd say for myself personally, I totally relate to that. Of when prior to COVID, I had actually had bouts of depression in my 20s, for various reasons. I'm still working through all of that, and just on top of that, the pandemic hit and my anxiety levels go through the roof. Like, I'm already on medication for it, so I'm thinking I'm stable, I'm fine, and then I lose my job for 5 months, and it's like all anxiety chaos breaks havoc, and it was insane, because you can imagine it's uncertainty. Now you don't have money to pay your bills and your debit orders and things, and I mean the whole world went into chaos. But I relate to what you're saying about mindfulness and like a gratitude journal. I guess I do that in different ways, and just if I'm praying, or writing down, I'm thankful for this today, and like you say, it's such a perspective shift where I would have never, I think, appreciated life and people and the relationships I have with my family, my friendships, community. I would have never seen that in the way I do now, I think, if I didn't have this disease.
I agree. I would have struggled much more to adjust to this had I not already been in lockdown for more than a year beforehand. So I was already, indoors all the time. I'd already, my anxiety was also through the roof in terms of being a manager, the kind of pressure I was putting myself under in order to kind of keep things going and keep it at a high caliber and support my team and, keep everybody happy, which is an impossible task. And expecting a lot of myself, and which as a recovering people pleaser and capital G good girl is tough. And so I was already in the practice of doing a self-care routine in the morning, and gratitude helps with anxiety because anxiety is rooted in lack, right? You feel like there's a lack of resources, a lack of time, a lack of ability, like you aren't enough, you don't have enough, you can't do enough. And what gratitude does is center you, it stills you, and it helps you to recognize what you have literally in your hand right now. So there would be, and it helps you to not judge. So it would be very easy to go, oh my God, I can't even get up. I'm completely useless. I am of no worth now. But what I can do is go, I can't get up. I am so grateful for this sofa that I'm on. I'm so grateful for the radiators that I have. I'm so grateful that my toilet is just there, that I have running water. But one thing about that gratitude thing is it can also keep you still. And what I needed after a while was something to help me change things. So what I tried to do was also write down things that were hard, because gratitude could, in the wrong hands, become toxic positivity, which is very dangerous in my view. And what it does help with, so what I now do is I write down things I'm grateful for and things that I find hard. Because if I'm honest about the things that I find hard, it also gives me something to focus on improving. And it also keeps things honest to myself without sort of just seeing the sofa. But it is hard getting up. And if it's hard getting up, then maybe there's something that I can shift about it or acknowledge about it or just talk to somebody about it. And it means that it's not getting repressed. That's why I say this is a daily practice. because
Mm.
the grief pendulum swing of, my God, this is my life now. But however way you
Yeah.
look at it is different. And I make it quite clear on my Instagram page that this isn't about getting back to who I was, because that's still who I am. And I don't want. I also don't want to. It's not. It wasn't healthy necessarily. And there's a lot of assumed truths and values that you hold yourself to that aren't good for you, like the capitalist expectation to work this many hours and work in this way and to only have value if you're economically contributing to society. I'm a drain on society at the moment because I'm on benefits, because I can't work, but I still have value. And
100%, yeah.
Embracing a life of stillness and recognizing the things that I still am as well as still can do is just as important as acknowledging the things that are now out of my reach of being able to do. I can't go for that triathlon at the moment. So right now, I'm really enjoying those memories, and I'm taking a look at a couple of Pilates exercises. And right now, that's
amazing,
you know, like just give yourself grace and appreciation.
Amazing. I actually, sorry, so you did triathlons prior to the pandemic?
Yeah, I was no good at them. Let's make this very clear. Like I said, I lost the boxing match really impressively.
Not a pro athlete. Yeah.
Like for the triathlon, I was the last out of the pond, like that we were swimming in, to the point where the guy who was doing the announcement was going, "A triumphant eventual exit of the water," and it took me hours to complete. But bloody did it.
That's amazing.
And the thing about if you speak to anybody who's done any boxing, they will talk to you for hours about the very primal connection that you make, because it's such a weird thing. There's a great comedian, an Irish comedian called Dylan Moran, who says, "I'm not a fighter, I'm a bleeder." That was very much me, and very much the diplomat, the pacifist, and I learned how to punch someone in the face and be punched in the face myself. And
wow,
I never want to do it again, but the training was amazing. I felt really strong. I've never been fitter in my life. And all I needed to do was give it 100%, last all of the rounds, and punch someone in the face. They were my 3 goals, which is why I apparently lost. I don't consider it was a loss in myself.
Wow.
But you learn who you are in the ring. And what I learned about myself is that I don't give up. And I apply that approach to this. And I had a whole purpose in my life. I used to be in like theatre and comedy and music for 10 years, and then I pivoted to youth work and working with young people who didn't have the same opportunities that I did growing up, and making sure that I'm creating programs to give them access to those things. And now my purpose was gone. I couldn't work anymore. How am I supposed to help people? What's the point? I didn't have depression, but it was very difficult to recognize that, well, what I'm known for is my energy and my productivity and my ability to pick you up from the airport and help you with your kids and all of these things. I can't do anymore. Like, who am I if I can't do that? And like you said about valuing your relationships, the love and support that I have received has been unbelievably touching, and not everybody has that. Just being believed is hard to get, right? Especially like when you look this good, it's hard for people to believe that you're sick. But it's and not everybody has come on this journey with me. Like there have been some that have just can't meet me where I'm at, and so that can't be my business. I have to let them go and deal with their own adjustment to my change, because I have to put my needs first now, and that's a really tough shift as well for a lot of women, I think, and anyone who's a people pleaser. You're just like, no, don't worry about me. No, actually do worry about me. I can't. If I have people coming over, like I used to be a great host, I was like, if you come over, you have to make your tea. Could you fill up my water bottle for me? I'm lying down now. And there's a beautiful German word, which I don't know, but it means I have been visited enough. And that's kind of, or I'll go, I'm. You can come for 2 hours. That's what I can give you.
My cup is full. I'd say. I think my cup is full.
Your cup is full.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's lots of lovely phrases around how you describe your experience. Like, I don't use judgment words. I don't have good days and bad days, because how dare I judge my experience? So I use descriptive words. It's much easier to communicate with people, but also it means that I'm not, because if I'm having a good day, that implies a bad one. And if you say you're having a bad day, like, where's the hope? Like, where's the potential? Like, you can have a bad moment, but that also can change around. So I say, like, I'm having a heavy day, or I'm very slow, or I'm tired, or my legs are wet noodle, or I'm able to do this today. You know, just descriptive.
Is that a British phrase, wet noodle, or descriptive word? Because okay, did you make it up? I've never heard that before. So.
Somebody said, "Oh, I'm really sorry, you're a wet noodle," and I'm like, that's exactly that's
Oh, my word.
It's great. Like, there's loads of things that you can come up with just to make it a bit funnier. Like, I am mostly duvet today, and there we go. And there's no apology. It's just fact. And those who are able to accept it will come with you, and those who find it very difficult, which it is. And I don't know if you found this when you have to manage other people's response to your change, which is tiring and difficult, especially when you're trying to manage it yourself. Some people are very saddened by it. Some people are quite frustrated. They're impatient, or they don't believe you. Again, I have been really lucky. On the whole, my friends have been amazing. And if anyone else is really struggling with asking for help, particularly if you're used to being the one who helps, give your friends a chance to get that feeling that you always get when you help someone. Like, what a great thing if somebody goes, I'm really hungry and I don't have the energy to cook today. And you're able to go, great, I'll come over. I love doing that. I've got a great lasagna recipe. Give your friends that chance, because especially if you used to do it for them, like, give them a chance to step up. It's been one of the most touching, moving things about this whole experience.
I struggle with that. I think a lot of people do, asking for help. It's like, no, like, I'm independent. Like, I don't want people to see me as a burden or whatever. Like, I very rarely would say, hey, come over here, and like, oh, do you want to come over, please? I need some help with a meal. I'm very grateful to have a girlfriend who's very supportive, and my family as well. But I think I'd have to, build up the courage to be like, guys, I'm really not doing well. Would you mind moving this event to my place so I can just join for a little bit? I don't know.
But that's a great idea. Like, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
If somebody said, Chris, look, I'm not very well. Could you come over? Could you pick up some soup for me along the way? Would you consider them a burden?
Not at all. I think in my nature, I'd want to help them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, fair enough. Okay. Amy, I wanted to touch back on your acute infection. So you had the first vaccine. Which brand was that, if you don't mind sharing?
That was Pfizer.
Pfizer, yeah. I've also had 2 Pfizers, so I relate to what I'd call the anti-vax versus vax narrative of, like, people are like, oh yeah, the vaccine, yeah, that's it, that's why you've got this, the whole thing. And it's likely in my case. I can explain why in a bit, but I'm always interested to try and figure out what damages the vaccine is causing. So who is getting injured by vaccine, but who's actually just getting injured by the acute infection, and it's done so much damage. It's killed millions of people. It's also causing long COVID in a lot of people. I know 2 friends personally, firsthand, that have long COVID now for probably over 2 years, never touched a vaccine. They just didn't see the need to get it, because they're young, they're healthy, they're around their 30s. Yeah. And so I get a little frustrated when people are always like, oh, did you have the vaccine? That's why you've got this, kind of. And I think there is a place for that, and looking at vaccine safety and efficacy, I think is the word. I've just spoken to, like I mentioned earlier, I've just spoken to Adam Rowland last week, who's got a vaccine injury from 2 AstraZenecas and didn't get COVID till 3 years later. And that's now his life, his reality. He can't work. He's living with his mom to help support him. And yeah, it's it's incredibly tough. So, sorry, back to my point. You had the first vaccine, felt absolutely fine, and only after your acute infection you actually took that knock.
And I'm of the view
Sure.
that it is impossible to tell. We can't have a control group of whether the vaccine does stuff. There have been very tragic correlations between the vaccine and what it does, and what happens in people's bodies after the vaccine. It's impossible to say. I've had people say to me, well, the vaccine opened the door for the virus to get in via your autoimmune condition with the hypermobility. That could have been a way. And it clearly didn't defend you because you got it after the first jab, but it could have been preventing a much worse infection. So it's impossible.
Exactly,
it's impossible to know. And I really have no comment on the vaccine. If I'm honest, I can't wade into the argument, because a lot of the societies who had a widespread vaccination program had a reduced amount of infections, but that doesn't mean that there weren't very adverse effects that often we might not have heard about because they were trying to promote the program. So it's difficult to get a full, authentic picture, I think.
Yeah, I've had a very good chat with a family friend recently this weekend, talking about I guess it's medical ethics, and if there's one death in 1,000 vaccinations, is that an acceptable amount? 1 in 100,000. What is that rate, and what is medical ethics? I have no background in medicine, so this channel for me is really an outlet to get to connect to people and just share encouragement with others online that are struggling with different conditions like this. So I just wanted to touch on your hypermobility. I don't actually know what that is, so I'd love you to just share a bit about that if for the listeners. Yeah.
It is a completely useless, bendy condition. So I've always been able to turn my arm 180 degrees, and my thumbs are weird and they can go back and forth and stuff like that. And it's great for party tricks, and you produce less collagen in your joints, so you can be prone to things like arthritis and stuff. But the hypermobility is a lack of collagen.
Okay.
And I don't know why it's under the autoimmune condition umbrella. I never knew this until I had it sort of tested. I was like, does it? I mean, I know I'm bendy, but is this relevant? And so I got a test and said, yeah, you're really bendy. Okay, cool. Yeah. So that was that. And again, I don't know what.
Isn't it just like saying you're more flexible than the average human, and maybe that's like a genetic trait that's a good thing, that you could become a good gymnast, or
well, it's good.
I don't know what else would be good for that, but
it's good. Yeah, it's good for if you want to be a gymnast, or you want to show off in yoga, or you want to
your Pilates
or you want to impress people at a party about your weird limbs because you're too scared to talk to them because you fancy them. There's uses for it all, but it's completely pointless and could be the reason why I have long COVID now. So it doesn't really help.
Yeah. I will say something interesting. One of the specialists I saw, Santa Lewis, she does a lot of work with patients on gut health and figuring out with this specific test she does to see what I guess edible things and liquids your body is struggling to process, what food groups. So she said she was picking up signs in her tests that I'd had glandular fever, and I thought, oh, that's ridiculous, I've never had that. But then she was saying what she's seeing in patients, that the COVID virus itself is actually triggering dormant viruses in our bodies, almost like it stimulates suddenly that activation or reactivation. And I never went for a specific glandular fever test. Okay, you've had glandular fever somewhere in your life, or was it just lying dormant there in my body since I was born? I don't know. So that's something that I've picked up.
That kind of falls under the post-viral fatigue. Like you can get. And again, I've been really lucky with people reaching out to me going, hey, it sounds like this is what I had after I had gastro when I was at school. And then I was never really saying, well, Epstein-Barr syndrome or something, where it's just a post-viral syndrome where you just don't recover properly from the condition for whatever reason. So yeah, and glandular fever comes up in that discussion as well. But again, I never had that. So, but it could have activated something dormant. One other theory was that if the way I kind of think about it is if the virus, so if the vaccine was like putting bouncers, if say my body's a nightclub and the vaccine is like putting bouncers on the door, the vaccine, the virus tries to get in and my bouncers are trying to fight them off. And for some reason, the bouncers are still trying to fight off the virus, and that's why I'm so tired.
Almost like they think it's still there, but maybe it's already dead and it's gone. And
exactly.
It's
another
like
theory
autoimmune,
is that
the disease kind of thing.
Yeah, or that it's a neurological condition, and it's my brain just can't make the synapses anymore to give me energy to do stuff.
Okay.
And as a result, I can't. But I don't know, because there aren't the tests. And I'm of the understanding that if 80% of people with chronic conditions are women, and women simply don't matter when it comes to medical research. In terms of funding, it doesn't matter. There's 6 times more amount of funding for male pattern baldness than there is into chronic conditions. So we aren't.
Wow, I did not know that.
It's mad. I mean, you were talking about ethical research and things like if one person out of 1,000 people die. In the 60s, when they were testing the pill, women were dying in the tests, and they kept on going to make it happen. They were also at the same time testing the male contraceptive pill, and men complained of a few mood swings and so stopped the trials. Women were dying and the trials kept on going. So when it comes to medical ethics, women and non-white women often don't matter nearly as much as a man's piece of data. So
sure.
I also can't talk about this very much because I've got to watch my heart rate if I want to keep talking, and I'm just going to get angry.
It'll work, yeah.
But yeah, they're cutting the funding. They're cutting the funding here. They're closing the long COVID clinics because they don't have answers. And with all the, the people who I've worked with are really, they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to understand it. They've worked with people who have ME, MS, chronic fatigue syndrome, and they're going, maybe it's kind of similar. So they are trying to help, but it's not helping, and they aren't doing enough to make it different or better.
Amy, have you heard of the treatment of anticoagulants, blood thinning?
I've heard that
about that methodology.
As an approach.
Yeah. So just to share with you, some of the listeners already know from my first video, I've been on blood thinners for 8 months, what they call triple therapy. It's basically a treatment that was, I don't know if it's born straight out of Stellenbosch, but where I live here in South Africa, a doctor called Dr. Jaco Laubscher and Rezia Pretorius from the Stellenbosch University, with among some other colleagues, they developed this treatment to work out if you have microclots and hyperplatelet activation in your blood. Their hypothesis is that the COVID spike protein is binding to receptors in your endothelial lining, so the lining of your blood vessels, everything, all your arteries, veins that carries blood. It's causing damage there. It's causing an issue with all your clotting, and then that's in turn stopping oxygen and nutrients getting transferred between your tissues and all that on a cellular level. Like, so that's their theory. I'm definitely seeing improvements, so I think maybe that's an option to try. If that treatment and prescription isn't available in the UK yet, I've heard of the Peter McCullough protocol, which is your bromelain, nattokinase, and curcumin. I think those 3 in a specific dosage that helps get rid of spike protein in your body. Something I'm still considering doing at some point, but I need to speak to my doctor about that, obviously, yeah.
When you say improvements, what kind of improvements have you been seeing?
I'm talking more consistent energy, definitely cognitive improvements. I'm more sharp at work. I think my work quality and standard is better. I'm back doing admin and feeling more just present, I think. I'd say the first 3-4 months of this treatment were incredibly rough. Your symptoms get worse because it's almost like these little microclots in your blood that they show you in the tests are breaking up, and whatever's contained in that is now your body immune system is kind of fighting and helping to deal with everything that's going on, and it's incredibly hard. Yeah, I've been pretty lucky in my work situation where, like you say, your colleagues are very understanding, your management and your boss. But there are days where people just, they don't understand, they don't get it. They think, oh, he's tired, or he didn't sleep well last night, or oh, he's a bit lazy, or not diligent. And that's not who I am at all. Like, I'm a super like hard worker in my past, what I'd call life. And yeah, it's been really tough. But I definitely say energy wise, I'm definitely feeling more stable. I was able to go for the first time in 6 months, go and do like what I'd call a bit of cardio and do some rollercading around in Cape Town for my sister's 30th. Yeah. And obviously on Sunday, like yesterday, or actually that's today, sorry, it's this morning, I had to kind of crash a bit and recover, but I didn't feel that complete exhaustion, like I need to sleep till 5-6 in the evening again after like doing even a light walk. So I'd say that's definitely something to look into. Check out Jez Medinger's channel. He has a very nice interview with Yaku. Yeah. So he's someone that inspired me basically to start this channel, or start these videos, I guess. Yeah. So maybe something to look at, and definitely get in contact with Adam Rowland. He's also in the UK somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where, but yeah, he seems like a guy that's trying a lot of different things: stem cell stuff, oxygen. There's talk about this hyperbaric oxygen treatment to help stimulate oxygen in your body. I haven't looked into that enough, and I need to obviously consult with Yaku as well, the pros and cons of that. But yeah, I think it's even just so encouraging to see you just keeping so positive 3 years in, and I think that's incredible. Like you said, your message is to keep fighting and keep just keep hoping that you can get better, and working through
let me be very clear. I'm not fighting, and I'm not hoping I'll get better. Those are not things that I'm doing.
Okay, so that's incorrect then. Sorry.
Yeah, it's no, that's fine. But it's really important that what is taken away from this conversation is that's not what I'm doing. I'm not trying to fight this. I'm not trying to beat it. What I'm trying to do is understand what my body does now. Yeah. And what I made a mental shift, I think it was about a year ago, probably around the time I was discharged, of going, this doesn't feel like recovery. This feels like what my body does now. And accepting that and learning that I'm starting from here. I'm not starting again, because I've got 40 years worth of experience, which is extremely valuable. So I'm starting from here with different tools. No, that's not right. I'm starting from here with the same tools I've always had, but it's a new workshop. And I don't know what I'm building yet. Yeah. Because I haven't seen anything like this. So I don't have goals that I'm working towards, because goals are over there and it feels like you're at a deficit. And what I need to do on days when I can't move is feel like I am currently present tense doing something. So I would say I'm going to Costa Rica, present tense, because I'm doing Duolingo every day. I'm doing Duolingo Spanish. Not because one day I hope to get to Costa Rica. I'm going to Costa Rica, present tense. And that's why I'm doing Spanish. I'm working as a DEI consultant, which means I'm having conversations, I'm studying, I'm doing these things. Some days I can't move again, so I might listen to a podcast or something, but that's what I'm working as right now. So it's present tense, but I'm not fighting, I'm not trying to beat it. I'm trying to understand how my body is responding, and my life is continuing with everything I've done in the past. I've got new perspectives. I've got a new sense of self, sense of value, and I'm using that to understand what I can do next. So while I make peace with the grief and the loss, the frustration, the anger, which does happen and is really important to vocalize, and to understand and to share, there is also
Yeah.
a whole new way that I'm living now, which is a lot healthier. And the things that I'm doing for myself, this is the thing about inclusive design. If I do these things for myself, everybody benefits. Everybody would benefit from a 30-minute meeting at work instead of an hour-long one, right? Everybody would benefit from, if they work better in the mornings, to then take the afternoon off or whatever. But because the system is designed for able-bodied men generally, we assume that that's just how it has to go. But the pandemic has taught us that more flexible working is much more sustainable. So yeah, so my mindset is, again, it's a daily practice because it's not easy, but it is one that is at peace. It is working on acceptance, gratitude, acknowledging the hard things and what you can do within the limits of those hard things, and who you still are. Not just do, because you aren't a human doing, you're a human being. So how can you keep being you at your best self? I'm lying down in bed right now in a Slash t-shirt and a leather jacket. Not necessary. But that is me. They're the edges of me that I can't go out and strut in the street and go to the, like, in the mosh pits like I used to. But I can bloody well wear a red leather jacket in bed. You know what I mean? Like, that's still me. That's who I am.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean about accepting all the bits of life which are just in different packages now.
Wow. It's very cool you say that. I think of, I mean, you must have gone to Glastonbury. That's a festival I'd love to visit one day.
Babes, I've played Glastonbury.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Cool. That's very cool.
But yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing place. It's a whole country.
Very, very cool. Yeah. Wow. I remember watching, we went to a festival. It was like the Coca-Cola festival here years ago when I was in my early 20s or teens. And they had 30 Seconds to Mars. I think Muse was playing as well. Wow. And Korn. I'm not a fan of Korn. They're a bit heavy for me. But Muse I really enjoyed. Just their production and level of musicianship. And Kings of Leon, just their like stage presence. Jared Leto was like running around the stage, climbing up the scaffolding, which is probably illegal, but he did it anyways. But I just thought of you now when you said mosh pit. They had the circle of dirt going up in the sky like a tornado. And then all of us came home and we had dirt in our noses and our ears, and you're just like, this is gross. Oh.
But it was dirt that you'd earned.
Yeah, not well, I wasn't in the mosh pit even. I was just like standing. I was like, no, I'm fine. I don't need to get involved there. But I like that you said a bit about that. It's very cool. I like that you're wearing leather in bed. That's cool.
It's just, and there are days when, there are, and this is something that I hope to share soon on Instagram, is like there are 4 things that I do when I can't do anything. And one of the things is to serve all of your senses. And one of those things is your sense of sound. And sometimes I would listen to a live album and just pretend I'm there.
Oh.
Or it might be a nice day and I can see a tree outside my window, so I'll put on a Costa Rica sound and pretend I'm in Costa Rica. Like, you have to, and I'm so grateful that I have access to those sounds. Like, it sucks that I can't leave the house. It sucks that I can't just book the flight because I don't have the money because I can't work. And you can start spiraling. But what you can do is go, wow, okay, I've got some essential oils that smell of jungle, and I've got the jungle sound. And I can look out the window and look at that tree and pretend that it's in Costa Rica. And just for a moment, you are. Yeah. And that just brings you back into the moment and the peace and the potential of every moment that you are alive, because you are alive now. This is why I don't get the YOLO thing, like you only live once. No, you are alive every day, all the time. So how are you treating yourself? What can you give yourself in those moments when all you can feel is that lack or the loss or the limits?
Yeah.
But those things, it's humbling. And sometimes it means I'm just going to put on my leather jacket. And something shifts a little bit. And you're like, yeah, that's still me. It's unnecessary, but it's me.
It's the small things. I really appreciate that. I think that's beautiful. For context, actually, I used to, maybe in a similar sense to you, before I was working this design job I am now, I was doing gigs and gigging for about 3-4 years full time, doing a similar thing to a John Mayer, Ed Sheeran, like singer-songwriter, kind of very chilled acoustic stuff, but also tried using the loop pedal and things at hotels and restaurants, gigs and weddings and things. And now I literally have no capacity. I stopped gigging a year ago, and all I have now is to try and, like you say, focus every day to day. I'm trying to make it to work. I've been very lucky that my job has kept me during this period. They're very understanding. But I have no capacity on a night or a weekend to go and gig. And like, you know how much, I'm sure you understand, it's like carrying the PA, the speakers, everything, setting up, setting down, striking. Like it's a lot of energy output that people don't understand. They think, oh, you're a musician, you just sit and play and you earn some, like a few thousand rand, it's great, you know, get a meal. But I really miss it. But sorry, the point I'm trying to make is that right now, like you visualize your Costa Rica and your jungle and the sounds and the smells, I just sit on my bed and I just tinkle on the guitar a little bit, and that gives me like a little bit of joy and like happiness internally. I'm like, man, like I miss this so much, but it's okay. Like maybe it'll come again or maybe it won't, but I've still got joy just from playing my instrument, whether or not I was successful in that industry or not. It's like, that's joy for me. Yeah.
And joy is enough. Joy is enough. And this is what I mean about letting go of those truths and those values and stuff that we've been told, like, but you're not earning any money from it, or what's the point in it? It's like we devalue the sense of play when we become grown-ups. Like, why don't you just go and like a thing that I do with a friend of mine is like, let's go and be crap at something. Let's go and draw something really badly, because we don't draw every day. We don't practice drawing. But why would we be any good at this, right? But you've got to go and do something badly because it's play, and the joy is enough. And I, as a musician as well, I used to gig a lot, and it's very hard to play physically these days, and so I don't. And the other day, I did, because I had to just go. I just have to be okay with being crap, and it's okay to be crap. No one's around, but you're connecting with that part of you, and I describe it as kind of turning up the volume on things that have been quiet for a while, and you're just connecting with that part of you. The part of you that can play the guitar can communicate something that you can't say with words, right? So it's still a part of you, and it's enough. And that's the value of stillness, of just like tinkling on the guitar is a beautiful thing. So what a wonderful way to spend your day. That's amazing.
Amen. I wanted to touch, Amy, back on the. I guess a lot of people are, like I said, with the vaccine narrative, they're it's quite controversial, obviously. Like, what's vaccine? Like, what's long vax? What's long COVID? You know, trying to figure out the difference. What's the root cause? We can't prove it, obviously, right now. But I wanted to ask, what made you want to get the second vaccine after you'd recovered from COVID, or you thought you had? What was there an element of doctors or yourself thinking, oh, maybe the second vaccine will help my symptoms alleviate and with the damage of the acute infection?
Yeah, I think there was an idea that it could change something. By that point, I was 6 weeks in of just feeling rubbish. And the idea was that you kind of finished the course. You had 2 vaccines, so I'd only had 1. So let's see if this
I see
changes the thing or prevents me from getting it again. I've not had COVID since. And I don't know why. It could be because of the vaccine. It could just be because I was immune, or because, I had one and done. I don't know. Other people I know who have had both vaccines and 4 boosters have been reinfected a number of times. It's impossible to know. And so I did it because I thought it could change. And I'd had one, so I may as well try another. Basically, was my thinking.
I've had 1 shot. I might as well do a second.
Might as well, the rock star in me is just like 2 shots.
Not tequila. That tequila I avoid at all costs. It doesn't end well.
Tequila's the only antidepressant alcohol.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that. I had actually on that topic. Like you say, it's impossible to know. What's frustrating for me, I've spoken to my whole family. They all had the Pfizer vaccines, as far as I know. My mom, my dad. My dad's had every single booster, I think, because of the rules of flying and just legalities around that. He travels to various countries in Asia for business, and it feels unfair that he's had to do that to his body, not knowing exactly how he's going to react to it. But for the most part, he seems fine. And my brother has had 2 Pfizer shots, absolutely fine. The thing is, he never got the acute infection. So I'm actually speaking to him about potentially doing some blood work to see how this compares to mine. He's the closest thing I have to, he's 5 years apart from me. So the closest thing I have blood-wise to my age group, my family genes and all that. Again, I know siblings will never have exactly the same genetics. So that's also tricky. Like, did something happen in my birth or in just the way, the sperm and the egg that I am? Is there something in there that is deficient in an immune system, or, just genetically like predisposed to having more of an endothelial damage or issue in my blood, or whatever that looks like? That's something I'm exploring and trying to understand, and maybe never will, but I think in the next couple of years, doctors will hopefully figure out, oh, it's a genetic component, it's a blood type thing, it's a predisposition based on your stress levels at the time of infection, or your immune system, and how your body handles, like you say, histamines and inflammation. Like, is inflammation important? Is diet important? Those kind of things I'm exploring.
Smoking. Yeah. A lot of people who smoke didn't get it. Like, didn't get COVID.
Wow.
And cannabis users as well didn't. And in fact, I had been recommended for 3 different people who all have 3 different views on medicine and vaccines.
Yeah.
And they all suggested I try the nicotine patches, just to see if there's something about it working on the inhibitors in mitochondria. Mitochondria makes the energy, right?
Yes, correct.
And
yeah.
I tried it, and it was at my niece's first birthday party, and I sat down on the floor and I couldn't move for 40 minutes because I was like, can't move. Something's not right. So I'm not trying that
for
again.
Context, sorry, are you a smoker prior to this or currently?
I mean, I've never smoked enough to give up, if you put it like that. Like, it was never a daily smoker.
Okay. Yeah.
So clearly not enough to stop me from getting COVID.
Yeah, sure. There's so much drama, especially locally in South Africa. I know some of the big tobacco companies are now suing the government because they're like, no, you stopped us selling cigarettes for 6 months, a year, whatever it was. And, now there's this whole black market of people selling 1 cigarette, like that whole thing.
They're about to pass a law. Well, it's being debated at the moment in the UK, where anybody born after 2009 will never be able to buy cigarettes.
Oh, my word.
Yeah. So, only.
But is there like a big lung cancer issue in the UK? Is that the reason, or for thinking behind it?
Because smoking's bad for you, and it's about time we do something about it. Basically,
I mean,
the argument is surely people can make their own minds up, but I think lung cancer is a problem, and but the same objections happened when we introduced seat belts. And recommended daily allowance of taking in alcohol. The fact that we aren't banning alcohol is mad, because that is a legal drug which causes incredible amounts of problems, and somehow it's still fine. So I mean, people who make decisions they're not smart people. It's very difficult.
I'm seeing this trend of vaping. I don't know if you've noticed that in the youth culture, or just people in general. People have moved away from the nicotine to the vaping, and it's almost like that's the healthier option. But
which is also an absolute fallacy. And we're trying to get kids off vaping in the UK by changing the flavors to stop making them like cartoon flavors. Basically, it's really silly.
Yeah,
I think it's really silly.
But it's horrible. I mean, not that I have anything against my auntie, but she was one of my aunties in the family. She was what do you call it? Chain smoker, I guess. So probably a cigarette, a pack, 2 packs, 3 packs a day, kind of, like chain is like literally cigarette, like bad, to the point that her doctor was like, you're going to die in 2 years, basically, if you don't stop. So she has now switched to the vaping route as a kind of, I guess it's a good coping mechanism, but Even myself, I'm not a smoker. I've had a puff here and there and tried a hubbly bubbly here and there at a friend or whatever, but I always like start coughing. I'm like, no, I'm fine, really. I'm pretty conservative with that stuff. But I smelled her vanilla flavored vape oil thing as she puffed it out at a family gathering. I was like, that smells so nice. I want to do that. Like, and so I can understand why kids are like, oh, strawberry this and vanilla that, and cherry blossoms or unicorns or whatever. I don't know.
I mean,
yeah.
The countries who smoke shisha have known this for some centuries, and now we've just about caught on. So, just to let you know, I've got maybe 5-10 minutes in me before I need to lie down.
That's perfect. Thank you for letting me know. I'll say, okay, so in closing, I would just ask, what would you say to someone who's in your position with long COVID, or someone who's got a vaccine injury, some kind of chronic fatigue syndrome disease? What would you say to them, other than what you've already said, to how you manage getting through, how to find hope or encouragement, on your dark days,
On the dark days, question the voice that is telling you that it's dark. Like, whose voice is that? Because often it can be like, and again, I haven't heard this very much from people, but occasionally it does come up of like, are you really sick? Isn't it just in your head? And you can gaslight yourself.
Yeah.
Or you go, this is totally useless. There's no point in me. I'm just a duvet sponge now. Like, what's the point? There is a beautiful poem by Rumi called This Body is a Guest House. And it is about the idea that we are visited by very different guests. They can be joyful, they can be sorrow. And in the same way that RuPaul talks about your inner saboteur, you can let these voices come in, you can offer them tea, but give it to them in a takeaway cup, because you don't need to let them sit with you. We have spent our entire lives listening to what other people think matters. And when it's just you and your duvet, none of that matters, actually. What does matter is your ideas, your hope, your creativity, your kindness, your humor. Like, you are still, because of technology today and the gratitude that we can acknowledge of the connections that we can still maintain, you could send a message to make someone laugh, or to say thank you to somebody, or to ask a question, or you still have value even if you don't do the things that you used to do. How you find what that value is completely up to you, whether that is in, like, I try to make sure that I create something that didn't exist when I woke up every day. And usually that's writing a piece of journalism, like just like journaling, or folding a paper crane, or coloring in another mandala, of which I've done a million, but nonetheless it's peaceful, it's colorful, and that doesn't have anything to do with society or the economy or productivity, but it's joy, it's peace, it's creative, and you're making contact with something that matters to you. It's kind of a roundabout way of just going, F them all. What matters to you is all that matters. It's you playing on your guitar on your bed for nothing but joy. It's me lying down and listening to live versions of Guns N' Roses from 1987, because what a beautiful way to spend half an hour.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate those thoughts and your story. And for those listening, I really hope you guys find something encouraging in this conversation. And Amy, they can follow you on Instagram, I believe. Amy Butterworth.
I am at Long COVID Rockstar.
I like it. That's old school. Nice.
Because I'm still at a rockstar. I'm just slower. And I attend gigs in a wheelchair. And it doesn't stop me rocking out, man.
Oh,
my walking stick has a skull on it. My wheelchair is bright pink. And I use it like my throne. like there's no weakness about it. It is ownership, and I am grateful for people who open the door for me. I'm grateful for the disabled toilets. If there isn't one, I complain and I give them advice on how to make things more accessible. So I'm a present advocate still, looking damn good doing it. And what I try to do on the page is to let people know what is still possible. So it's really hard to leave the house. It's really challenging keeping your social engagements up. So I share how I prepare. And a lot of it is without makeup. I never use a filter on my face, because why would you put a bumper sticker on a Bentley? But also just being really honest about the challenges that it takes to still live a bit of your life in a new way, but prepare for it in a way for you. Like all of my approaches to things is energy conservation. That's why I'm lying down now, so that I can do as much as I can. And then I've just given you a 5-minute warning, and now I need to go and lie down. But that's kind of what I'm trying to share on the page. And I would invite anybody to come and share their experience, and I'm always opening to learning. Like I'm open to learning what other people are doing, what makes other people feel comfortable. The other day, somebody brought me up on the fact that I wasn't wearing a mask when I went to this gig at Wembley Arena, which is an indoor gig. And it really gave me pause about why I wasn't wearing a mask and what that can do for other people. It can help, stop spreading stuff, but it can also help other people feel a little bit more cared for. You can rock up in solidarity and just going like if anybody in this room has an autoimmune condition, they can look at me and go, I've thought about you. So I'm open to learning as I do this too.
Sorry, but just to be clear, masks aren't a regulation anymore. It's just a courtesy, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's become and rightly or wrongly, because from what I understand, COVID is still going about, but the media have moved on. And it means that we can all get back to work, and we can all go to restaurants again, and everything's fine. And we now pay for COVID tests, again, which I don't agree with. But in terms of, there are still people like me, there are still people who have autoimmune conditions who are really still at risk. And there's no judgment from my perspective in terms of what people choose to do. But it does give me pause in terms of what other people need when they go out, and how to show that I've cared for them too. So it's not regulation, it's a personal choice now.
Amazing. Amy, thank you so much for your time. I think people are really going to enjoy this conversation and be able to take something good from it. And I hope you rest well. And I love that you give notice. That's amazing. I should say, family, you have 5 minutes. Bye.
And it's a judgment, and I never apologize for it. I say I've got 5 minutes. And there's always a nice way to end a conversation. Go, before I go, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I've really had a great time.
I'll use that before I go.
Yeah.
I love it. Thanks, Amy. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Keep up the great work.